Hey, it's Jer here, and I have a favor to ask you. We are entered in the Podcast Awards, one of the industry's longest-standing awards since 2005. We are in the news and politics category, as well as People's Choice. I know that the math is against us. We serve a few counties. A lot of our competition serves the entire nation. Some of the winners are gargantuan shows like Today Explained. So we really need your help to get a chance at getting nominated. And if we can just get nominated, just get there, I think it would be great for us, for Detroit, for Southeast Michigan, to show that we can do that on this stage. So podcastawards.com. It doesn't take too long to do. News and politics category. Thank you so much for your consideration. We really appreciate you. Hello, friends. Welcome back from the holiday break. It is Wednesday, July 5th, 2023. I am Jer Stays, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. With us, a pair of astute individuals who I enjoy very much. We've kind of smushed your Monday together with your Wednesday, and we have a Norris Howard. How are you?
Hey, what's going on? Happy to be back from the holiday.
And Fletcher Sharp.
Hey, everyone. I know it's not Monday, but it's a day that ends in day, so I'll be here.
What did you all do over the weekend, Norris?
Just hung out with family and friends, man. Did the whole barbecue situation. My mom made some drinks that were entirely too strong, so...
Did your mother get you drunk?
Not all the way, but my best friend, yeah. So it was a pretty fun day.
Fletcher.
I tried to trim my beard, made it a little bit, crooked, and decided to just get rid of it because I got frustrated. So I lost my beard this weekend. I also, while driving down East Jefferson in the Grosse Pointe area, looked over and saw a very large boat that I thought was a freighter and turned back around and realized it was not a freighter. I saw a bunch of people on the water looking and staring. It turns out there was a cruise ship, and that's when I learned that people take cruise ships for the Great Lakes. And I guess I've been spoiled by living next to them my entire life, just about. I just didn't think that's something people would do. But it's very much a thing, as I was told on Twitter.
Yeah, I also know that those tickets are actually kind of expensive for those.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that makes sense. Like, if it's something like that, I expect people to be like, yeah, give me your firstborn child and you can go through the Great Lakes.
Yeah, well, I have a foster cat project, and somehow she enjoyed the fireworks. She cat loafed on the ledge and just watched them. Because, here in Detroit, the fireworks go off 2 blocks away from you, and it's the full Monty. Everything lights up. It was a A1 professional show from my neighbors as far as if you're into that sort of thing.
What I've learned from having pets is if you get a pet off the street versus a pet that's born from someone, they typically enjoy fireworks. We have a rescue dog, and she loves fireworks, but every other dog I've encountered that people have been like, I've got him from this boutique or something, all their dogs are afraid. So if they're from the street, fireworks don't bother them at all.
Interesting. Well, we've got a lot to talk about today. I want to start with a story of a neighborhood that I think is close to the hearts of many in the region, in the city of Detroit, Greektown. They are getting a bucket of $20 million from the state of Michigan to redo their streetscape. I've got renderings up on social media. I sent renderings to you guys to talk about it. The redesign aims to prioritize people walking, enhance safety, offer what they call program flexibility. So basically they can change it around, do different things. The idea here is that it's actually going to have no curbs. It's going to be a walking promenade that can shut down the traffic with some bollards that come up to basically, lock it down for a series of about 4 blocks from Randolph to I-375. This could be a huge deal. $20 million really changes the look of Greektown on social media. The renderings just went absolutely crazy for the vision of what Greektown could be. Personally, I don't think the timing could be better because there needs to be a reset with Greektown and a reset of Greektown's reputation, and maybe a little bit of construction, although going to be difficult for some of these businesses, kind of allows people to, maybe work on their hours, work on their protocol, work on everything to kind of make things a little bit different down there.
I'm going to be honest. Just the removal of the curbs by itself will probably save the party goers down there hundreds and thousands of dollars in medical bills. Because I have personally seen way too many drunken falls, snapped ankles, potential concussions, and all manner of contusions around those curbs. So even just that by itself is a really cool idea. The renderings look amazing if you haven't had the chance to see them. I think it's a pretty cool thing. I'm not sure how much it does change the reputation of Greektown, because I'm not sure if it changes, the activity or the type of folks that go down to Greektown and get into stuff. But I think there is something to, making the surroundings look and feel a lot better, to potentially having folks calm down a little bit and just enjoying the surroundings. That's a hope, but I think it's great. I think it's a step in the right direction for sure.
I mean, I'm not a smart guy, but just building off Norris's point, I feel like if the reputation is not great for people doing things in Greektown as pedestrians, I think making it more for pedestrians might either stabilize that or maybe increase it a bit. But I will say, I do think it's a good idea overall. I wish when I lived downtown that they had something like this, just because walking from where I used to live on Randolph Street by Harmony Park over to Greektown was a little perilous. So it'd be nice to have it, maybe not be as bad. But yeah, off of Norris's point, I mean, we see those videos on social media. If we want to see less of those, maybe doing something else to curb that as opposed to making it more accessible to pedestrians. But I mean, it's good. I think it could be great for the city. I'm all for making the city better and making more people want to go to things.
It's cool too, because you go to other major cities and almost all of them have these sort of pedestrian promenades, if you will. In many cases, multiple pedestrian promenades. Like, for instance, in New York City, they have like a former or what used to be a railway line, the High Line, that they turned into a pedestrian promenade. And it's fantastic, and people use it every day for various reasons. It's not always about the whole, food truckification of everything, but sometimes people go up there to work just to get some sunlight, some outdoor space. So I think the more that we can lean into that, especially in downtown Detroit where the population density is actually increasing, I think that's a fantastic thing. And hopefully people will be able to use and enjoy Greektown throughout the week and not just on the weekends where, the objective is to turn up and potentially get into something. I think you make the surroundings look a lot better. People tend to treat it better. So I hope that what Fletcher says, I hope that it turns down some of the foolishness.
I think the construction might break some habits of people, right? Because you do something every week or you do something every month, and then if it's not available for a while, because I imagine this is going to require a lot of rework all the way down into the street, right, to do something like this. And I think when it reopens, maybe some of the businesses are probably going to consider, I would think they would consider their hours, because a lot of these issues are happening far later at night. That's one thing. And then the other thing is that we don't have very many contiguous areas of bars and restaurants in Metro Detroit. One of the reasons why Greektown gets so much attention, there aren't many places where you have like 8 or 9 or 10 places in a row that are all walkable and right there. That just doesn't exist very many places. Even in the city, it doesn't exist very many places. And so I think there is a real opportunity here to get this to what a lot of people remember Greektown being, as far as like a hop-in place where people, congregated a lot.
As long as they don't do anything to take away being able to get into Astoria really quickly and get some cookies and get out, I'm all for it. That's really it.
Turns out Fletcher's Cookie Monster.
I mean, at some point, yeah. Astoria makes some really great pastries. If they take that away from me, then yeah, we'll have some problems. Otherwise, whatever. Like if it makes the city better and makes people want to be around, that's great. Just don't get in the way between me and my sprinkle cookies, please.
Now, up in Oakland County, officials love roundabouts, and 5 more are under construction, and that'll make more than 40 in Michigan's wealthiest county by the end of the year. Officials there say it reduces traffic fatalities by 90% and congestion by 30 to 50%, depending on the intersection. Those are some pretty big numbers. I know that roundabouts are a controversial thing among many Michiganders that are not used to it. I mean, we're kind of home of the traffic light as well. The reason why all the fatalities go down is that you have a lot fewer T-bone collisions and head-on collisions at intersections making turns. So you got more of like a sideswipe action as opposed to a like crash into each other action. Roundabout intersections are being built this year, according to WXYZ, at Orion Road and Stony Creek, 2 on Elizabeth Lake Road, another on DeQuinder at 23 Mile, and a bit closer in, Greenfield and Normandy in Beverly Hills. We don't usually see them closer to 696 nowadays. Like, it's usually an outer Oakland County thing. Are we entering an era of fewer streetlights, guys? How do we feel about the roundabout?
Hate it. Hate it with a passion. Listen, I understand that it does bring down traffic fatalities and all that stuff, and that ultimately is a good thing. Scientifically, I can't argue against that. But personal anecdote, I mean, just in January of this year, I was rear-ended in a roundabout because you're supposed to yield before you go into a roundabout where people are in it, and this person behind me obviously did not know that rule because they put in the roundabouts, but they don't send out like an email or a primer on how to actually drive in a roundabout. And so people hit you. So anecdotally, I hate roundabouts and I will abolish them. But that's not going to happen. So I guess here we are.
Yeah, roundabouts are dumb. I'd love to push back, but like I live by a roundabout near the Grosse Pointe Detroit border, which has become such a hot topic issue. And literally this weekend, Friday, a car ran full speed and was not used to a roundabout. Maybe they probably could have slowed down a bit. But they hit over like the edge, then the middle, and then the edge again. Kercheval's like nuts destroyed right now because a guy just couldn't go through. And yet, to Norris's point, like, even when you're doing driver's training, they don't teach you how to go through a roundabout. So my first experience with a roundabout was just happening to be out in the world, and I didn't know what I was doing. And thankfully, there's only 2 other cars in there because it could have got very, very bad. But they don't really teach you like what to do. It's just like, oh yeah, you go in there and, you know, cross your fingers. And like that's really dangerous. And I'm hearing that like they're supposed to prevent traffic that's so nutty to me because every time I see people go in there, I clench my hands like, please, no one get hurt. It's like putting blood in a centrifuge and hoping that it comes out, except, you know, it's just real people. And just, yeah, it makes me super uncomfortable. And, you know, I understand stoplights, so, you know, they want to get rid of them, but not roundabouts. Do something else, please. Like, I'd rather they even do like rock, paper, scissors or something, but just not roundabout.
I mean, I disagree with both you guys. Both of your examples are dumb drivers. Like, it's not the design, it's that we don't know what it is. Like, maybe there is a training issue. I remember learning about roundabouts, but I learned driver's training in the Paleozoic era. You know, dinosaurs were walking the earth when I did driver's training. Like, both your examples are dumb drivers. Like, that person should have been going too fast and that person should have known the rules. I think that's the angst about this. I think they're much better. I don't mind using them.
They are dumb drivers, but you could help mitigate dumb drivers by literally making it a stop sign and not a yield sign, because too many people have no idea the difference between the two. If you just make it a stop sign at every roundabout, so everybody has to stop before they enter the roundabout, no matter what, then I think we're at probably a better situation. But because there are so many dumb drivers, and dumb drivers typically would more obey a stop light than a yield sign, I think that it may serve better, at least anecdotally, for people like me and Fletcher. But what I will say, I do think it behooves the state to put out some sort of educational material about roundabouts. I live near 2 or 3 of them, and there is one where you drive over one roundabout, you drive over a highway, and then at the end of the highway is another roundabout. So you have this just churn of people, and you can always tell the people who are not used to it. And to Fletcher's point, I think it just makes people nervous. It makes them overly cautious, and thank goodness that it doesn't lead to fatalities, but it is annoying. And, you know, if I had to pick annoying over fatality, yes, I would pick annoying. But I just think there could be a better job done about educating the populace about how to use them effectively.
Why is it when you said that, I had that like video game, what is it, Mortal Kombat, like fatality in my head?
Some of those accidents lead to some Mortal Kombat fatalities. But yeah, to Norris's yield signs, they can't be near there because people don't.
I mean, yield signs in Michigan are just, you know, look while you're driving through. Like, nobody slows down.
It's to the point to where, like, yield signs now, like, if I see the opposing cross-sec street has a yield sign, I'm going to stop before they stop because I know they're not going to stop. Like, I know
Facts.
they see yield and they see a car, they're going to go. I've been hit by someone who literally saw me and drove through anyways. I was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, you have a sign. Like, literally, you have a sign. And He's like, well, what is that? I'm like, oh my God,
What is a yield?
What is a yield sign?
you should not be behind the wheel, and we'll let insurance settle this, because yikes on a bike. I'm trying to compute how that roundabouts make things safer, and I'm not sure how. But if the numbers say so, I mean, numbers, you can manipulate them, but they still don't really lie. So I'm going to just trust the numbers there.
I think that this is clear that there just needs to be more education about this, like a full-on campaign. That I will 100% agree with that. A lot of people have no idea. They've never ran into one. Most people haven't traveled to Europe or something, right? Like among our friends, like we've been places and things like that. But, this is a completely new concept to many Michiganders. So more knowledge is necessary. Sticking with driving, there are a couple of trends happening at the same time I think we could talk about. One is the cost of a new car is higher than ever before, and the other, teenagers and young people are holding off on getting their driver's licenses. And I remember getting my license and it being kind of a freedom card with my, 1980s style or early 90s style Plymouth Acclaim, the fancy luxury K car, and being so proud of it. But anyway, Bridge, Michigan reports that 56% of Michigan teenagers had driver's licenses in 2021, down from 66% in 2000. And the reasons for the decline include being too busy to learn and high car ownership costs. This, of course, impacts low-income Black and Latino households the most. And then speaking of those high car ownership costs, another report in the Free Press says that the average car payment before insurance and all that is $733 a month, with 1/5 of car buyers spending $1,000 a month on their car payments. Thoughts, guys?
Ridiculous.
I have a friend who literally just had her car stolen, so she had to buy a new car, and she's like, I want a Jeep. And I was like, good luck. They went to the dealership with my partner, and she was telling me the prices, and I'm like, why are you looking for such a new car? She's like, no, I'm looking for a 2011. I'm like, oh, like, why does it cost so high? And it's like, because, people really need cars and people understand that, so the price is gonna be, and I'm like, that's just wild to me. Like, I understand, I guess, businesses. Like, when I bought my first car, it was a older Ford Focus 2003, and I was lucky to get it for $3,000. And I was like, you know what, bit much for what it is, but I'll gladly take it because it'll get me from A to B. And just I blue booked that same car, and it's at least like $2-3K more. And seeing that, my eyes roll into the back of my head. I cannot understand. I mean, business-wise, I understand it, but just otherwise, I don't understand how. But, it's brutal out there. And, yeah, I understand if you don't want to have a license because you can't really go anywhere. I mean, having a license is great for your own freedom as a young person. But, if you can't really drive, then I don't really see the point.
I think it's like two issues with this. Number one is the death of the car aftermarket. As you were saying, Fletcher, talking about like, buying a $3,000 car from, whoever, like you just don't see that much of that anymore.
Listen, people on Twitter tell me that you can. I got to tell you this. Every time we talk about transit, somebody's like, oh, you can pick up a car for $500. And I'm like, I don't think so.
I don't see that.
Yeah, it's a car on blocks.
Exactly.
$500 on blocks.
A car that literally can turn on and drive down the street is at least $3,000 to $5,000 right now, right? So off the rip, you've priced out most teenagers, definitely priced out most teenagers. But I think on top of that, the concept of teenagers getting licenses, I think for folks like us in our age and older, there were places to go. There were third spaces that you wanted to be at, and we don't have those third spaces really anymore. I remember, obviously teens still go to the mall, but the mall is not what it used to be in the 80s and 90s and even in the early 2000s. There's no arcades. People don't really go to public pools like that anymore. So where would the teenagers be going? So I empathize with them on that sense in terms of like, sure, I can get a driver's license, but what, to just drive to my friend's house? Why would I do that when I could just hop on Xbox Live and talk to them and play Fortnite? There's less and less reason for teenagers to get out in the world. That's just me trying to be empathetic.
But economically, that's going to set you way back long term,
Exactly.
right? Like, especially in a region like ours. Like, it's a different story. You live in Chicago, you live in Brooklyn or New York or whatever. There's definitely, look, the systems aren't perfect, but you can go to work every day. You can do certain things. Here, our systems can barely get you to a job.
Right. And on top of that, I'm almost sure, Fletcher, I don't know about you, but I went to Detroit Public Schools and I was able to go to driver's training for free at school. It was a part of you signed up and you may have had to go to a different school because only certain high schools had it. But you could go to driver's training for free. I had mine at Cody High School, and it was pretty straightforward. There was no sort of red tape. There was no rigmarole. You went in, you got the instruction, you took the test, you took a road test, you got your hours, and you didn't have to spend any money on that outside of your fees at the Secretary of State. But nowadays, you got to go to the private driver's training place. Then you got to pay per lesson, or you got to get some sort of package. And then you all have to have the fees on top of that. So before you even get to the point of spending the $4,500 on the car, you already are spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars to even learn how to drive. What teenager in 2023 can afford that? Virtually none. So I'm not shocked about these numbers.
I actually didn't get my license till after high school because I lived right next to U of D. So I just literally walked to school, and my father drove stick, and I was like, I don't want to learn how to do that, so I'll just wait till later. But I went to same day driving on the east side, and like it was relatively cheap. Got my stuff figured out really quickly and was able to go. And like even now, like my cousin went to the same place, and I saw how much he was paying now. And I'm like, that's not what I was like. I understand over time prices go up, but like he's lucky that my uncle, was able to buy him a car, because he would probably be walking to school the same way I was and then getting taken to sporting events because, it's not cheap. It's just crazy. And it makes me realize I'm getting old. It's just seeing how stuff is changing from time to time. And I don't really like it very much, but I have to accept it.
I call myself a veteran young guy. It's not old. All right. Detroit City FC lost 3-2 against Tulsa. This was a hard one to watch as far as a game. I felt like we had a chance of actually winning this thing. The city's defense disintegrated in the back third of the game. A lot of people just are looking at this going, okay, we had that hot streak. Then we had those issues at home, and then we see this 3-2 loss. I know both of you watch La Rouge, as do I. What is going on here? Like, is this a trust the process? Trevor James says it's going to be 3 years and we just have to grin and bear it? Or like, what's going on here, guys?
One person subbed on, and someone I've been very harsh on, and I'm not going to name names, but I'm sure people can look back and see exactly who. And the defense fell apart. Before he came on, defense kind of seemed to get things back together. Matt Lewis had subbed back in finally after being gone for his foot injury, which has been great to see. He even scored an amazing goal. Stephen Carroll chipped in with a goal as well. Not really good when your goals are coming from your center backs on set pieces, but I mean, a goal's a goal, but those are like the lowest efficiently level goals in like all of the sport. It means that like your forwards are not contributing, which is not great. Someone came on, defense got destabilized, and they got run through on the back end, which is very unfortunate because they're supposed to be a defensive stalwart team. You're not supposed to give up 2 goals in quick succession on things that should be covered, but they are not. It was kind of a regression back to before, where I used to complain where DCFC would mark somebody and then leave somebody, and then the person they would leave would score the goal. On the game-winning goal, literally Marcus Epps passed the ball to Philip Goodrum, who I hate so much, like Paul Pierce level, do not like, but passed the ball to him. And then he literally passed the ball right back to Marcus Epps, who was wide open for some reason. I don't know why you didn't mark the guy who just passed the ball, but Marcus Epps literally took one step and calmly hit a low ball into the bottom corner. That's basic stuff. That's stuff you teach at like U8, where it's like, hey, we do a 1-2, watch the guy who passed the ball. It's probably going right back to him. And they didn't do it, and they lost. They got to figure that out, and I'm not sure what they're going to do. To your point about trusting the process, I mean, you really at this point, either you're going to or you're not, because this is what it's going to be. They're not going to sign Messi out of the blue. They're not going to sign old Ronaldo from Brazil. They're not going to sign Erling Haaland. This is it. Like, this is what they have. Unless they find some money to do something and, figure something out, dig up part of Keyworth and find, $4 million bond or something. Like, this is what they have.
I'm just going to say, I feel like it wasn't even just a sense of tired legs. I just feel like mentally the whole team just stopped. They saw they were up in the 88th minute, and they were just like, all right, this game is won. They're going to throw it at us. When you look at the goals, both of those last 2 goals from Tulsa come from driving runs in the midfield. How is that happening in the 88th and 89th minute, right? If you're in the midfield, Do you foul a guy and have him take a free kick from the half field? I don't know. Maybe you do. But the point is that when you see some of those counterattacks and you see some of those runs from the midfield, before they even get into the box, the defense is disorganized. It's in 6s and 7s. There's no way that they can get back in, at least for the game tying goal. There was just guys running around unmarked. I feel like when you see goals like that late in the game, you're looking at a team in Tulsa that mentally was sharper, was fresher, and was more aggressive. And DCFC thought they had the match won already. It's as simple as that. I think talking about the process and what they have and the players and the parts and the pieces, I think with those two types of goals, I think those are moot because you can have good players, and if good players switch off, those goals are still getting scored. So I don't necessarily think that it's so much the players. I just think in this match in particular, it was just a team that thought they had the match won already, and they didn't.
I wouldn't even go that far. I agree with some of that. Is even the first goal they gave up was literally a long ball hit up there. Devin wasn't paying attention. He got beat from behind. Nate saw someone running at him and instinctively clattered into him, even though the guy was going away from the net to give a PK. Like, of course, obviously you make a split-second decision when stuff's happening, but like when you watch the replay, it's very apparent that Eric Bird, who has the ball, is running away from the net. So don't hit him. He's got to make a really tough shot to get the ball into the net as long as you stay between him and the net. It's probably not going to go into the net. But if you hit him and tackle him, it's going to be a PK, and they're probably going to score because statistically, PKs are skewed towards the person shooting. So, like, all three of their goals are just, you're sitting there like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And, like, obviously, like, I'm not going to say I could go out there and do the same thing because there's a reason why I'm sitting here and we're out there in Tulsa. But in the same vein, it's like, look, like if I can see it, I know you can see it. So what are you doing?
Yeah. Next match is New Mexico United out west on Saturday, then Loudoun back here on Wednesday, the 12th. To me, for any kind of playoff shot, Loudoun is a must-win game. Any thoughts on these two before we talk about the women's club real quick?
New Mexico's kind of spinning out right now, but they put the ball in the net. I mean, they score with the team. They don't have some amazing scorer who has like 12 goals. They have one guy with 5, 2 guys with 4, someone with 3, and a bunch with 2. So, like, it's a team effort. Last time they played last year, they really put it on Detroit. I know the scoreline wasn't, that big of a favor in New Mexico's favor, but the stats were. They just kind of bent them to their will. And New Mexico is fighting for a playoff spot in the very, very competitive West, so I don't really see this going Detroit's way, unfortunately. Loudoun lost Panos Armanakis, who's now playing for Phoenix, so I think they have a better chance. They still have Zach Ryan, who's an amazing young talent in the midfield and forward. They need to win that, but as we've seen, when they need to win, like, they tend to struggle a bit, so I'm not really sure. I'm thinking maybe they get 1 point in these next 2 games.
Yeah, I think they're both, unfortunately, must-wins. I think actually there may be a chance against New Mexico, but 6-pointer against Loudoun United, I'm not seeing it either. I just think front to back, they just seem like a more competent and better team. So I'm not sure if they're going to be able to clinch that. But if DCFC do win both of these matches, that puts them in the driver's seat for a playoff spot. So I hope that energizes the players, but I think I'm with Fletcher. I think I see 3 points out of the next 2, but just getting a draw in New Mexico and a loss against Loudoun, I see that very much so a possibility.
All right, the women's season wrapped up. The women's side of LaRouge finished in 3rd place in their division, ending with a complete rout of AFC Ann Arbor. Now that it's wrapped up, a couple of thoughts, maybe, looking back on the season and ahead for next year.
They played better than last year. I know it doesn't really seem like it because they have a pretty similar record. But watching them, the way he had them playing, like they played a much more up-tempo style. They played a more in-your-face type of style. They didn't really get blown out that often this year. I mean, it happened once or twice, but those teams are Flint City and, Midwest United are the top of the divisions. They put people in the professional leagues of women's soccer. You expect that to happen. But they played well. Seeing Sydney Bloomquist back was great. She really put a charge in the midfield. Defense kind of struggled a little bit, but, it's something to build off of. It's kind of hard to look forward, really, for next year, though. It's kind of like the old DCFC men's, where since it's not professional, they get all these kids from college to come back. So you're really hoping you get some of these kids back from college, but some of them might get drafted. Some of them might elect to go somewhere else. It's just kind of a hodgepodge. So you're thankful for the year. You can build memories off it and hope that maybe next year you get some kids back. But it's a crapshoot until like a month before the next season starts.
I just want to say shout out to all the supporters. I mean, they had some good attendance at some of those matches. All right, we are done for today. Remember that Friday is National Dive Bar Day, in case you're interested. There's some long-standing establishments in the city and suburbs to check out. Tomorrow is a conversation with the CEO and co-founder of that Vertical Harvest Detroit coming to town. So we'll be talking vertical farming and what the plans are for John R. just south of 94. Feedback, as always, email or voicemail, dailydetroit@gmail.com. Thank you to our members, patreon.com/dailydetroit for keeping this thing going. With that, I'm Jer Stays.
I'm Norris Howard.
And I'm Fletcher Sharp.
Thanks for listening. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.